welcome to Tea with Justine. Today I'm here with my friend Janet B. She is a therapist and a beautiful soul, and I'm so excited that she's here to have tea with me. And we're going to talk a little bit about her focus, which is sex therapy and therapy with sex addicts, right?
Sex addiction.
Sex addiction therapy. There we go. Sorry.
You know, in our culture, I come from a culture where sex is not really talked about.
Yeah.
It's like a very much a taboo subject, and not just my culture, but I see it throughout all cultures, a lot of cultures, and all religious backgrounds.
Scandalous to talk about.
Yeah. So I felt like people, unfortunately, have been growing up with a lot of misinformed ideas about sex and sexuality, and I was definitely fascinated by that. And also, of course, I really wanted to support survivors of sexual abuse and trauma.
Awesome.
So that desire and sort of focus is what led me to pursue this specific specialization.
Awesome. And specifically, what kind of issues, I guess, are you dealing with?
Yeah, so sex therapy and sex addiction therapy are actually two different things, even though they probably sound the same. So sex therapy is more about like, how do you enhance your sex life? How do you improve intimacy issues? How do you improve your relationship? For sex therapy, I see clients with a lot of anxiety around sex, sometimes anxiety around their bodies, and also clients with, for example, men, erectile dysfunction issues, premature ejaculation, women, maybe it's pain with sex or pelvic pain, that type of a thing. So that's more of the sex therapy. Sex addiction therapy is very different. It's more about clients who have any type of behavior sexually that are either obsessive or compulsive. So like any addiction, like if I were addicted to cocaine, you know, I don't have any control over myself, and my addiction affects you know, friendships, affects my functioning at work, that type of a thing. So sex addiction is the same thing. So for example, there's porn addiction, there's compulsive masturbation, there's you know, sleeping with a lot of people. And so kind of helping clients through understanding why they have these behaviors, because by the time clients call me or see me, they know that something's wrong.
Yeah, I think that's great that they know there's an outlet for them where they can talk to someone and perhaps get help, because I assume there's a lot of shame that they're feeling, or maybe embarrassment. It takes a lot to go talk to anyone about that.
I basically work with clients individually, and you know, in terms of how I work, I do a really thorough assessment. So I collect a lot of information about their family history, religious history, you know, their beliefs about sex, their behaviors, any triggers to their behaviors, and then we sort of develop a really strong treatment plan. And we work on it together. For sex addicts, you know, a lot of it is almost like rewiring your brain, because like a cocaine addict, you know, the brain is addicted to the dopamine. And for, let's say, a porn addict, you know, the dopamine is the porn, right? So, you know, I really encourage and work with clients on abstinence, and, you know, we work on their values and behaviors around sex.
So between like the difference between cocaine and like a sex addiction though, you know, cocaine is a substance that you could try to stay away from. Sex, though, I imagine is harder to stay away from because it's such a natural part of our lives.
Yes, exactly. So sex addiction is a little more complicated, right? Because if I'm addicted to cocaine, you know, through a thorough program, I can stay away from it, and I can, you know, work the 12 steps. But with sex, you know, you don't want to eliminate sex fully. Like you can't. It's a part of your everyday life, and so it's really about how do you create a healthy sexuality and healthy intimacy in your life.
Awesome. Do you feel like a lot of sex addict clients are trauma victims as well, or not necessarily?
So it can be both, really. With some of my clients, they have, you know, experienced quite a deal of trauma in childhood, and sometimes they're not even aware of it. They're just like, oh, this is how I grew up, this is normal. And then other clients, they were more so raised around, basically like misinformed sexual
Okay.
boundaries. So let's say, for example, like maybe their parents were having sex in front of them,
Yeah.
or there was like Playboys just out on the table, or nudity everywhere. So those are very misinformed sexual boundaries.
So really talking about sex should be very normal. I mean, we all have sex education, but like it doesn't really go beyond teaching us about STIs and putting on a condom, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like, we need to start talking about this more in our own homes and making it a more normal and healthy conversation. Now, your work with sexual assault victims, that must be, I imagine, emotionally difficult. At least for me, I think of it and I don't know how I would not be emotionally charged. How is it working with them, and like, if someone is a victim of sexual assault, how would you advise them to get help, or what would you tell them if you could tell them something?
Well, I want survivors to know that they're not alone. It happens to a lot of people, unfortunately. For women, I think it's like 1 in 3.
Yeah.
And then for men, it's like 1 in 6, but I think there's even more with men because not all men report.
Yeah.
So
and those both are just the reported numbers.
Yes, exactly. So for survivors, I want them to know that there's hope, that, there is a way to deal with this and treat this. And, if there's fear around sex, or fear around the body, or fear around men or women, depending on who perpetrated on you, there is a way to get through it and, live a normal life, really, because survivors often don't feel normal. The shame is so pervasive.
Yeah.
So I would just tell them, seek treatment, go to a trauma therapist, maybe get in your body differently, like through exercise, yoga, meditation. How are you going to be a healthy, well-rounded individual overall?
I think that's great advice.
I think that there are 2 parts to us, or actually many parts to us. There's the intellectual, healthy adult self, let's say, that knows, it wasn't my fault. There was no way I could have known that this would have happened. But then, because sexual abuse and rape and stuff like that is so pervasive and just so awful, the shame sticks. It really does. So it's about working with that part, in therapy. And I'm not going to say you're going to eliminate it, but more so, how are you going to provide that part of you with compassion? How are you going to console that part of you? How are you going to find a new meaning after the trauma? Because unfortunately, that memory is never going to go away, but it doesn't have to, you don't have to hold on to it in the way that you did forever.
Awesome. You're a dancer as well, and you do a lot of dancing. How does that help you in your everyday life?
Dancing has helped me be more connected to my body. It helped me be connected to my sensuality and, that part to myself. So I would recommend all individuals, partake in some type of movement that really help with their self-esteem, with their identity, with just depression and general anxiety. It's really, really good for you.
Well, life balance is definitely the key to living a healthy life. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me. You all have a wonderful day. We're gonna finish our tea here, and we will be back with you soon. Toodles!